in mind. That's from years ago when I first started in cinema in 1957. And so, but I had to get it done. First I had to learn cinema. There really weren't cinema schools as we have now. Things were more like, they were almost like secret guilds passing on from father to son, etc., etc. So, this was my idea the whole time, not this specific film, because my specific idea was political. And the idea of what that would be, what shape it would best take, is why I did this. First, one of the major problems one of them was that it couldn't be too technically advanced in expensive equipment. I'm the chief editor. I edited everything. I did the music and all that type of thing. But those things you could handle. But as far as having crates or pass-bys or planes and things like that, I couldn't do any of those things. So I had to keep the story possible. Next, I had to avoid the Teamsters and the Mafia and everybody else, the real ones, because you were not allowed to make independent films in Hollywood, unless they were porno films. So, of course, I started off by telling everybody it was a porno film, which gave me a little leeway at the beginning. And this is quite interesting. The trajectory of the movie, how I shot it, was so, everybody thought I shot my most salacious parts in the first 3 or 4 days, because at that time, the Teamsters would put somebody in the projection booth along with the projectionist, who was also a union member, and he would look at the film. If they thought it wasn't a porn movie, then they would stop the movie in some way. So I had that to contend with. So that's why I told them that. Next, I shot a large part of the movie in the hood, where the team would not dare come down and jump on a black guy in the black neighborhood. If they got down somewhere else, I was dead. Third, I shot the rest of the movie in the desert. Nobody knew where I was. So, I mean, this was a literal battle. It never came to battle because I outwitted it. My group and my guys were all packing. I'm not talking about candy bars, I'm talking about real guns. So, in fact, one day I came in and I had this sense of, where's my gun? So I put it in the prop box. Prop box! And I just shot a scene where the guys being questioned by the police. Suppose one of those people that picked up not the prop gun, but my gun. I'd have blown the guy's head, I wouldn't have blown him because the guy who pulled the trigger would have blown his head off. So those were the problems.
And did you always envision to play the Sweetback part yourself, or did that come about?
No, I had no idea of playing Sweetback. However, the actors of color who were available all wanted more lines. And I said, no, the guy didn't talk. That's part of his whole thing. I'll take a shot once and that's it. But these guys wanted to blast and talk about whatever they wanted to talk about, the situation of the minorities and blah, 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 blah. So I didn't want that, and everybody refused. Who had any really, even a slight bit of film experience, they wanted lines, because that's how you're taught in film school. How many lines do you have? And people wanted lines. And so, besides, I wanted somebody I could depend on, and so I had everything to lose. So I hired him.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there was no such thing as stunt man or any of that, but when I had to jump off a bridge, etc., I had to do that too. Yeah.
And you were saying before that you know, there weren't really any film schools in the 50s when you were first getting into film, and obviously, you know, you didn't go to film school, and you didn't apprentice in the Hollywood system. How did you teach yourself the language of cinema?
Well, pretty much like I had to do the rest of the things. I wasn't given a whole lot of encouragement in most things, and so I just learned to do it myself. I may have albums and this and that and write the music, but I can't read or write music, but I can count. I numbered all the keys on the piano. What the hell? I put the numbers down. We bred my mama at 6, 6.5, 5, 9, 7. Girl. But people can come and say, oh, that's in B, so 4, 8. I don't know what it is, just play it. But it works. So I remember when I called a guy who, my first person I was going to use as my cameraman, I go to him and I says, I want to shoot a film. He said, oh, great, you're going to shoot it in 16 to 35. What's that? He says 16 to 35 millimeters. So, oh! What's that? I'm not kidding. I knew nothing at all about photography or anything else. But I asked him to explain it to me. And it turns out 16 was cheaper, but it could be blown up to 35, which he said was more professional. So I decided I was going to use 16. And I remember at that time, it was 1957. I said, how long is the movie? He says, oh, I've been going to triple features all my life. You never play that kind of thing. He said, yeah, 90 minutes, give or take a few. So, okay. And by my calculations, I discovered that I could make a feature film for $500. $500. Look, that's what the film cost. I forgot a little thing in my eagerness that you had to develop the film, you had to make copies, you had to do sound. Those things came later. Luckily, otherwise I might have got discouraged. But anyway, that's, I just taught myself little by little. I speak French, I speak Dutch a little bit, I used to speak Spanish. I mean, I went to school, but if you have to go to the toilet enough, you'll learn how to say what you need to say. You will learn. That's how I learned.
Now, can you talk a little bit about the reaction to Sweetback when it was released? You were saying last night that, for example, that the Black Panthers made it mandatory viewing for all of their members. But I'm wondering also if there were any segments of the black community that were against the film.
Yes, there are a couple of assassination attempts on me because I'm not even counting the white. I'm talking about in the black community, because some people were very rigid in their belief of how the revolutionary should or should not be televised. And no, we're going to change the world, we're going to change it this way, otherwise there ain't change. Just like you find churches or people who believe in the hereafter, something fighting among themselves. And I had violated that because it broke the mold. The only way there's going to be revolutionary, if here I come along, there's a line around that people going to see my movie. Wait a minute, now that's not the way we initially thought the revolution would be. So there were a couple of major attempts. You know, my son Mario, who's living with me, he used to walk in front of me when we walked down the street. I lived near the Carnegie Deli on 7th Avenue. But Mario would always walk so that when the trouble came, I have time to get out my gun. You can't teach your kids courage, and they're courageous or they're not. I've always remembered that extremely fondly how Mario would block for him. But it took a while for people to realize there's more than one encased road into how to get freedom or liberty or to fight. And so there were some tough moments. Very interestingly, when the Panthers, I would recommend, if anybody gets a chance to see the movie Mario made about making this movie called Baadasssss. It's all through the things that happened. My first two customers, only two theaters in the United States would show the movie. One was open on a Wednesday in Detroit and on a Friday in Atlanta. And my first customers, this was before they had triplexes and all that. There were these huge theaters that were practically empty. And so in downtown Detroit, there's a balcony. And the first two people who came in, because they were going to replace on Wednesday, I guess, first two people, a woman came in about 60, and a mother. But I was standing there in this huge lobby. My first two customers. Wow. 20 minutes later, they come back and ask for their money back. Now that was a low point. That was a low point. I will not lie. That was a low point. But then, the next movie, the next showing, a guy came in and he left. That was a Panther. I didn't know who he was or anything. And by that evening, there were lines all the way around. They opened the balcony, but they hadn't opened in 15 years. They ran out of popcorn because the word had gotten out. Because I'd invented something now everybody uses. The distributors were all white. And in fact, the honest truth, the only way I could sell the film or get a distributor was when I finished the film, I had a buddy of mine who was white. I paid him to pretend to be the boss. I didn't deal with him. That's the only way I got it done. Anyway, when the word got out that there was this movie, I showed it to DJs. There were DJs who would play the music. Now before, normally if you do a film, you'd bring out a soundtrack or something. Maybe even if you bought a Hollywood movie, bring out the soundtrack 3 weeks, 4 weeks, months later, etc., etc. It was an ancillary thing. Since I had no money to pay for any radio ad, let alone a television ad, how was I going to do it? I said, well, hell, it cost me this for a 15-second ad, but if I write a hit song, I got 3.5 minutes. So I wrote these hit songs, and I got this group nobody ever heard of before, Earth, Wind and Fire. It was their first album. And they played the music, and the DJs got behind me and started playing my music. And so that's how I advertised the show. And then that started off this whole new paradigm of where music became de rigueur for any film. In fact, some movies just turned out to be walking video advertising for the film, and that's what happened.
I want to take some questions from the audience. Yes, I do.
Was there a reason?
Whoa! I left my braille at home. Speak up, motherfucker.
Excuse me. Was there a reason that you had some of the songs playing over each other throughout the movie, or was that just for whatever?
Questions the overlapping on the soundtrack of certain songs playing at the same time as other songs. What was the reason for it?
I like it. I wanted to play the pulling from one subconscious to another, etc. I did it. That's just the way I heard it. And I use music as an actor itself. I use the thought of to blame my mama, to blame my papa, won't blame me, won't I switch that into another. I'm playing on the subliminal recall, I hope. That's why I did it that way. But I like it. Yes, sir.
Were there various characters in the film that were inspired from people you knew and that you referenced to or made part of the film?
The question is, were some of the characters in the film based on real people that Melvin knew and he based the characters on them?
Not specifically, but I mean, how many times you walk down the street, I know that ain't metaphor, I know this so-and-so and such and such. These were people, I'm from the south side of Chicago, where the rule is don't write no check with your mouth, gas can't cash, where you got to be ready for this. But we all know, I've lived that life, and I knew all these people. I didn't know. Sometimes you specifically pull a person from somewhere, but sometimes there's a melange, a mixture of different characters. I don't. The only person. Well, one of the girls gave me claps, but outside that, no, that's nothing.
I didn't know the lingo. Is that expression sweetback? Is that lingo? What does it mean? Something?
The question is, does the expression sweetback actually does that have a meaning, or did you invent that expression?
Haha. Boy, what I'd like to say, I invented that, but I didn't. I was once listening to an old blues guy from a Library of Congress recording, and he was being interviewed to talk. And he was saying, that's a Sweetback man, a guy who made his living off women. Was called a Sweetback man because if you know anything about the funky monkey, you do it right, you use your back. And so the motion of the back, it was good. He said, oh, you got a sweet back. I didn't invent that. But almost no one had ever heard it before. Maybe they was solo album, I don't know. But that's, I asked some other people from the Deep South, oh yeah, he's a Sweetback man. And so I thought that would be perfect.
Yes. There's a question about the musical opera version of Sweetback.
Well, yeah, you know, Sweetback I always envisioned as an opera. If you look at the album cover, it says Sweetback, badass song, and there's little thing, an opera. So I lived in France also, and I had the opportunity with the use of the band orchestra, Burnt Sugar, to do Sweetback as an opera. And so I just showed it in Paris last year as an opera. I'm trying to get some backing here to do it in the States. It's in English. I rehearsed it in Greek, and there was a couple of little songs. There was about the New York Times did it. an article about it. But as yet, I haven't brought it to America. But I'm sure hoping to make it. Because it's dead, bro, it's dead. Yes, sir.
What do you best like about the movie?
The question is, what do you most like about the 40 years later?
Oh, I can talk about that. I like, you know, it's like asking a mama, which one of your kids you like? I'm like, come on. And there's not a special point. It's putting it all together so it becomes dynamic in its own way. I like it as a whole. I'm very, very pleased. Actually, Sweetback is a trilogy. But I never got the possibility of making the other shows. Because the next show took responsibility. I made another movie after Sweetback, and I could never get it distributed. Because when I originally did Sweetback, I promised the power structure 2 for 1. I promised them that they could feel liberal by helping me, and 2, have their racist theories vindicated by my failure. When I didn't feel, everybody got pissed off. Normally, you make bread, and then you're welcomed into the club. It was easier to shove the political content aside and make cartoons that became blaxploitation. And we have to make a film that's making a real political statement. So my ass has been grasped ever since on that. So that's why I went to Broadway. And you ain't supposed to die natural death, and some of the other things.
Fortunately, we're just about out of time, but I'm hoping you can just tell people a little bit about what's happening on this coming Thursday at Joe's Pub.
Oh yes. I've got a new orchestra, and I open at Joe's Pub on Thursday, 7 o'clock. And my new band is called Laxatives. I don't take no shit. You know what I mean? Hey, look, you might as well enjoy life. You know what I'm saying? And come on down. I mean, it's death. I'm good. Okay. Joe's Pub. And then after that, the officer I go to Paris. So text me while you can while it's hot. I really appreciate it. And if you do, tell me where you saw me, okie?
Melvin Van Peebles, thank you so much.
Thank you.